Hey, what is up guys? GuitarRock here, welcome back to another counter-side video. Now one of the most asked questions that I have is regarding ships. You know, whenever I live stream, a lot of people will come in and hey GuitarRock, what ship should I build next? So, good news for you guys, hopefully in this video I'm going to talk about all the SSR ships, give you guys a better idea on what the global server has available right now. So with that being said, let's jump into it. So, earlier today, I managed to finish the dive and I managed to get like my last 10 special ship schematics. So I will be able to build my first SSR ship. Now, if you guys are not aware, I haven't built Enterprise yet. Why is that, right? Because I used some of my materials to build Stella. Now, Stella is a pretty decent ship for PvP. Now, I didn't know that Enterprise is going to be banned like crazy, but I guess that's just because everybody went and built Enterprise. But Stella is the best R rarity ship that you can build right now. Now in terms of R ships, there's like Stella, Rangris, there's Erendite, there's Bayern, there's Grey Station, there's Game Changer. None of these are actually that good. So Stella is still going to be the best SSR ship that you can build by far in terms of R rarity. Alright, so in my opinion, I do think that Stella is slightly better than Gleipnir as well, which I think everyone gets this for free. But this ship is really dependent on what you're trying to do. I guess in PvE, if you're autoing, this ship is going to be slightly better. But Stella is much more of a control ship. You can control and target the enemy with stun. So if you have experience in PvP, this is going to be a ship for you. Now let's talk about Enterprise comparing to other SSR ships. I think the top 3 ships that I get asked a lot is Enterprise, Lake Superior, and also Kamizumi. Now these 3 ships I do get asked a lot, hey GuitarRock, is it worth building this ship? Now let's talk about global players right now, right? So in terms of Enterprise, obviously when I talk about building ships, ideally I'm going to take much more of a PvE into consideration more than PvP. Now in PvP, it's just the nature of how it is, right? Because whether you like it or not, you can't just build one ship and expect, oh, you know, that ship to be available every single week. Now PvP works in a very community heavy way that if a ship is being used a lot, then it's gonna get banned, right? So you can't just make one ship and expect that ship to be free every single week. So you are forced to build multiple ships. It is just how the nature of PvPs are. But in terms of the best PvE ship is going to be Enterprise, by far none. Now what makes Enterprise really good? So let me just build my Enterprise and we're going to talk along the way. So Enterprise is the best PvE ship because it has a lot of auto synergy in it. Now if you guys are not aware, Enterprise ultimate skill gives the ability. Now this ultimate skill has the ability to reduce 30% of attack and 30% of defense from the enemy for 8 seconds. Now this can easily be paired with a lot of other let's say counter units. For example, Sioyun, you can sort of set it so that she is deployed when you are activating your special ship skill or your ultimate ship skill rather, and that's going to give you a huge burst of damage because Sioyun is one of the best PvE buffer in the game. She gives like 30% attack to everyone, right, if you max her skill. So that is like an insane strat. In terms of auto strategy, this is going to be one of the better ships that you have moving forward. Now, in terms of the passive skill, is not too bad. You can see increased attack by 12% for counters and mechs. So this is going to affect 2 category of units, right? Not soldiers, sadly. If you want to build soldier, I guess Stella is not too bad of a soldier ship. Comparing Enterprise to Lake Superior, Lake Superior is a slightly better PvP ship in my opinion, but in PvE, Lake Superior just pales in comparison. Now why is that? Because if you look at the passive skill, Lake Superior, what it does is it gives damage taken minus 12% for every single unit on the field. Now this on paper, it sounds insane, it sounds good, but global players, especially you guys who watch my videos, now the first rule that I told you guys is, hey, try and reroll for Awaken Heal Day. And I think most of you guys probably try to get her or maybe get one for free along the way as well. So if you have Awaken Heal Day, more than likely your Awaken Heal Day is not going to die. She's going to be your front line most of the time, and you don't really need the decreased damage for the time being, right? In the current PvE contents of the game, there's no like There's no stage that Awaken Heal Day just gets destroyed. Later on, maybe yes, there are some stages that Awaken Heal Day's tankiness might not be enough, but for the time being, early on, if you do reroll for Awaken Heal Day, you probably don't need Leg Superior. Alright, and in most cases, going damage is something that you are lacking rather than survivability, right? So this ship it makes your characters tankier. It's good in PvP for sure because your characters are slightly tankier, they don't die as fast, but in PvE, right now, at least in the early phase, most of the time you're going to be lacking the damage. Like if you guys have been trying to play at all for any of the stages, either in the supply operation or in the challenge or in any of the simulation or whatsoever, it's all about DPS check, right? You have 1 minute 30 seconds, that's like the usual time to beat the stage. You gotta 3-star the stage so that you can skip the stage. So Enterprise is going to give you that boost of damage that you need in terms of the ultimate skill, the special skill, and also the passive skill, right? So let's talk about Kamizumi then. Where does Kamizumi fits in? Now right now, Kamizumi is, in my opinion, is a little bit behind it compared to Enterprise if you're talking about PvE. But in PvP, Kamizumi might be a better ship later on. Now what makes Kamizumi really strong in PvP is going to be the active skill. So this one is good because as you can see, it has an ability to remove one non-permanent buff, and also targets will lose 30% of their attack speed for 6 seconds. Now removing buff is insane in PvP, right? So later on you will know why, because there's a lot of characters with insane buffs. For example, immortality, right? Basically they won't die for like 6 seconds or 8 seconds even though their HP reaches 0, which is crazy. Having Kamizumi is going to enable you to remove those permanent buffs in PvP. And also in terms of the passive skill, you can see ally units crit plus 250 and crit damage plus 25%. Now this is insane actually. It gives you the boost for the crit and crit damage. However, compared to Enterprise, this might be much more favorable to certain teams depending, right? So the thing with crit and crit damage, not every character has high crit and crit damage. So some character like Xiaolin, right, she will always deal crit damage. However, she probably won't benefit from the crit. So in that case, this ship seems much more team dependent compared to Enterprise. Enterprise overall felt slightly more flexible in most of the current PvE contents right now. And yeah, what the ship does is kind of similar to Enterprise. I feel like if you build Enterprise, you don't really need to build Kamizumi, at least not for the time being, right? So you can build the ship later on, but if you already have Enterprise, I wouldn't advise you to build a Kamizumi because they do very similar things. Now, like I mentioned in PvP later on, once more and more characters are released, this is going to be an insane ship in PvP. Maybe it will get banned a lot, I have no idea. New Ohio, now this is something that I do get asked a lot. Should you build New Ohio? The answer is yes. You gotta build New Ohio to be able to build New Detroit. Now New Detroit is by far, is just the best Danger Close ship. Now Danger Close is not here yet. What makes this ship really strong is this particular active skill, right? So it can basically reduce enemies' defense by 50% for 12 seconds. Now that will give you the huge burst in terms of damage, right? The passive skill leaves a little bit to be desired. As you can see, it only affects strikers. Attack plus 20% and attack speed plus 15%. So right now in the game, Global do have some strikers going on around like Esterosa. She's slightly on the tankier side of things rather than the damage focus. Same goes for Twins. Twins is much more CC focused, knock down the enemy with a special skill and basically suck them in with the ultimate skill. So they are not really more damage focused. But later on, when Niall Blue Steel comes, maybe Ifrit comes, it's going to get stronger for sure with all the strong strikers coming into the game as time moves on, right? But for the time being, the only good, like I would say very good character that can pair really well with this ship probably is Admin Swordsman or Admin Swordsfighter. I think those characters, those soldiers are going to be insane when paired with this ship. So New Detroit is one of the best Danger Close ship by far. Alright, Danger Close is not here yet. There's no rush to build this ship yet. You sort of need to build New Ohio to get to New Detroit, sadly. Now, that's the thing. Let's talk about New Ohio. What do I think of New Ohio? New Ohio is the best ship, but it's also the worst ship at the same time. Now, speaking from PvE standpoint of view, this ship is good in the Shadow Hall, Shadow Palace later on because you can see it increased damage towards soldiers, specifically soldiers. Enemy soldiers damage taken plus 20%. So it can be a very good ship to counter soldiers. Now in PvP, this passive skill doesn't do anything, right? So it really depends on the enemy team that you fight. What makes this ship really strong though is not the passive skill, but rather the special skill. The special skill basically silences the enemy, alright, within that circular area. And if you know how to take advantage of this, right? If you are a PvP expert, this is going to make you win battles for sure. Because if enemies are silenced, they cannot cast their special skill or ultimate skill. You can even silence enemies' ship as well, which makes this ship just insanely good, alright, and whoever who is inside the range will get their hit decreased by 50% as well. The thing with New Ohio is you sort of need skill to use it. If you are someone that plays PvP casually, you just auto, probably this ship is not going to fit you. But if you consider yourself an expert in PvP, this ship can carry you all the way to Challenger, easily. Like this, if you know how to silence certain characters or certain units, and you have a very deep understanding on how the synergy of certain things work, I think this is the best PvP ship right now. It just depends on how you activate the special skill. Now the active skill is pretty cool. It does basically affect the enemy skill hits a little bit. They lose 20% of it, and all your allies will gain 50% evasion. Now the evasion is like it's whatever, but most of the time the silence is going to determine whether you win or lose the battle. The problem is sometimes player can mistime it. There's delay when you play PvP sometimes, and you can basically aim at the wrong side of things as well, and that will affect the outcome of the battle sometimes. So gotta be careful when you're using this ship. You need to practice a little bit. Now moving on, we have a Gleipnir armor type and the Gleipnir port type. Now these two ships are kind of niche in PvE. I wouldn't recommend building them in PvE. Same reason with Gleipnir armor type with Leg Superior. Now Gleipnir armor type is basically like a tanky ship, right? But you can see this one, it basically reduces counters damage taken by 20%. Whereas Leg Superior is much more flexible. It applies to everyone, including soldiers and mechs, but it reduces damage taken by 12%. So pick your poison, right? If you have a counter team specifically, this is going to be a better ship. But for PvE, generally you don't just use counter teams. You bring some soldiers, you bring some mechs as well. So this ship, you won't get the full effect. And again, in PvE, like I mentioned right now, it's much more of a DPS check rather than survivability check. So I don't see how this ship can be that useful in PvE right now, right? And what I don't like about the skill, it has a lot of issues for this ship, alright? It's not a ship that's recommended because of its issues. Number one, the active skill. This active skill, right, will basically, you knock back enemies that hit your ship. So basically mentioned here, if the absorb damage, it will create a special barrier, and if the absorb damage exceeds 5% of HP, the skill will instantly knock back all surrounding enemies. So you gotta purposely let enemies hit your ship, which doesn't make sense. Like in most cases, it's a very defensive ship. Maybe if you're saving for cost, you can use that skill in a special sort of manner, but in most cases, you don't get the chance because it's very risky to let enemy hit your ship, because if a ship dies, you lose the battle, right? So in PvE, this wouldn't even be a useful thing at all. It doesn't make sense. In PvP, maybe there's some strategy that you can cheese with it. The active skill right here for the ultimate skill for this ship, this one I don't really like because it only affects ground enemies. So it basically lifts up all the ground enemies and throws them away. Again, if you have Rosaria, she will still be there hitting your ship. Or if you have like any air units at all, Evelyn, etc. So it only affects ground units. I feel like they need to buff this ship so that it affects everyone. But hey, that's just what I think. And Gleipnir port type, which I think is the worst one between these two. I think Gleipnir port type probably might be the worst SSR ship actually in the game. Now, why is that, right? Again, both Gleipnir only affect counter units. So that one reduced damage taken. This one increased ally counters evasion by 32%. As you can see, right, the special skill right now inflicts AoE damage on ground enemies. Again, targets lose 50% of attack speed. So it reduces attack speed and does a little bit of damage. The active skill though, it basically does this explosion, and the flames increase the enemy's damage taken by 25% for 8 seconds. Now this sounds really interesting that you increase the damage taken by 25%, but it's quite similar to what the Enterprise does, because Enterprise decrease enemies defense by 30%. So in a way, the damage taken depending on how you look at it, might be more, might be less. This ship does have the worst passive skill, right? Enterprise at least boosts everyone's attack slightly for counter and max. So this one only evasion, so it's much more of a evasion is much more of a defensive thing as well. So for early PvE, if you're trying to beat PvE stage, this is not going to help you much from the passive skill. Alright, you gotta rely on the active skill. Enterprise carrier type, soldier ship. Now, this is going to be one of the better soldier ships for the time being, but later on there will be a better one called Matador, and I think most players should skip this ship. I don't think this ship is worth building at all. It does give soldiers attack plus 15%, HP plus 15%. It gives you barrier as well. The active skill deploys aircraft and stuff. If you want to build a good soldier ship right now, I think Stella is a better ship. And they both consume the same type of material, auxiliary ship, both of them. So build Stella instead if you're really trying to, build a soldier team. I think Stella is going to help you much better. So the last SSR ship that we have to talk about right now is Albion. Now Albion is interesting. It's just I don't think you want to build this ship if you focus on PvE. Like again, you gotta beat the last challenge act to be able to construct this. For the time being, Albion doesn't provide much in terms of the PvE scenario. Now you can see again, when you deploy your character for the passive skill, this will give you barrier for your character, some sort of shield. If they are Pride 1 institution units, it will be 16%. If not, it will be 12%, right? So the active skill basically gives you stealth. So stealth basically means that your character is invincible. Like the enemies can't see them, the enemy will walk past them. Again, this is not something that you use in PvE. It's much more of a PvP thing to chase around the enemy so that they just walk past you and go for your ship, and then maybe you try to kill their backline or something. But in most cases, in PvE, this is kind of a bad ship for PvE actually. Probably one of the worst one as well, right? The last one is the levitates enemies and just push them back. Decrease affected enemies incoming healing by 100% for 15 seconds. So yeah, Albion is much more of a PvP ship. Definitely very solid PvP ship later on. But if you are looking just strictly for PvE, like I've said right now, right, for global server right now, Enterprise and Kamizumi is going to be the best SSR ship because it gives damage. Most of the other ships, they give either like decreased damage taken, gives evasion, gives shield. Now these things are good later on, but not right now. Right now in global server, I feel like most players will be lacking the damage. You're trying to, set up your stage so that you can get the 1 minute 30 seconds mark to be able to DPS check all of the stage so that you can sweep them successfully. So Enterprise, Kamizumi is going to be the top 2 ships. If you don't have to build both of them, right? You don't need 2 similar ships like I mentioned. If you have Enterprise, go for that. Alright, you don't have to build for Kamizumi, just go for New Ohio next and then build New Detroit. And if you have Kamizumi, maybe just skip Enterprise. I strongly believe Enterprise is slightly better in PvE, but that's just, Kamizumi is not too far behind either. Alright, so with that being said, that's gonna be it for this video. It's much more of us talking about ships. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to see more videos like this, but for characters instead, I'll try and do that if you guys want to see that. As always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Hetoro11, thanks for subscribing, man. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.